Just don't cover the camera.
The lens is here.
Make sure it's not slanted.
Yeah.
Okay, that's should be good.
You don't go down a little bit? No?
Huh? I think it's fine. We have the candidates. Oh, we might want to. Yeah, move it this way. Have it just shift this way a little. So. Yeah, that's perfect.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Can you try one? Just to make sure that's
Testing. Testing.
I didn't hear you that. Kill them. Kill them. I heard you, but...
Do I sit at one of the chairs now? Do you need help with anything?
We're just going to monitor.
Okay. Can the camera be tilted? I guess it's tilted. Is there a way to get more of their faces and less of the audience? Like Zoom? And less, or like less of her?
Wait, oh, it's
How do you tweet as DC Death? Wait, no, I want to tweet as DC Death. This was like before I existed. They just emailed us the solution for one of the three pieces of like, I don't have the device on me, but it's something that I want to be able to tweet as DC Death. And they also emailed
all this
oh wow. What are you
I'm directing this. So my phone doesn't go flying? Alright.
I said be careful.
That's an impressive tripod for an iPhone.
blocking regulation.
Sarah's gonna roast them.
I think as long as we arrange them in a way, it's like they're still packed starting out. Is there a way to, like, I don't know, get less of this? Like to just zoom in on.
Welcome, candidates and audience members, to the 10th annual UA President and Vice President debate. My name is Emma Bingham. I'll be one of your moderators tonight. I'm the executive editor at The Tech.
We also want to say thank you to the UA Election Commission, the candidates, and everyone else who made this debate possible tonight. I'm Olivia, I'm your other moderator, and the format of this debate will follow this format. The candidates will be given a 3-minute opening statement. For the first hour or so, we will ask questions that all the candidates will be expected to answer. In order, they will be given a chance for rebuttal. Each pair will have 90 seconds to respond to the question and 60 seconds for their rebuttal. We would also like to disclose the conflict of interest that we have tonight. Aron Ricardo Perez-Lopez, the DP candidate here, is also a member of the managing board of the Tech. And unfortunately, this means that the Aron's ticket had access to the questions ahead of the debate. Earlier today, we sent those questions to all the candidates so that there is a level playing field.
So for the last half hour, we're going to open up the floor to audience questions. We'll accept some questions live from audience members here, and if anyone's watching the live stream, we'll accept questions on Facebook and I believe the Google form.
Is it sound? Does it sound?
That could just be us not talking loud enough into the microphone. All right, without further ado, we'll allow the candidates for opening statements. We're going to go down the line.
Hi everyone, my name is Melvin, and I'm a junior in First 8 and First 17, and I live in Senior House. I mention Senior House not just because it is a place I care about deeply, but because it is the place I first learned about the importance of student government. I have experienced firsthand the consequences of administrative decision-making that lacks transparency and student representation. I have fought for students to be included in discussions that impact their undergraduate experiences, and I have seen the tides turn through active community engagement and effective advocacy. In the coming year, we will face many decisions which will impact the lives of undergraduates across the institute. These negotiations related to affordable dining, academic advising, and accessible mental health resources will require student leaders who will serve as dedicated and effective advocates. Through our collective experiences in student government, Alexa and I have gained the knowledge and skills necessary to take on these challenges and effectively advocate for student interests to the administration. But in order to advocate for the undergraduate body, the UA must become a more representative organization. We must strengthen communication between students and the UA and empower students to bring their concerns to the UA and speak candidly with our leadership. In order to do this, we will host more casual conversations between the UA and students across campus, and we will create an online platform for students to easily submit their concerns. We must also ensure the diversity of experiences present in the student body is reflected in student leadership by encouraging student leaders of cultural groups to leverage their experiences within the UA. Diversity and communication are important because representation is important as we discuss the concrete issues that face undergraduates. In the coming year, we will prioritize dining, mental health resources, career fair, and academic advising. We will work to guarantee affordable and accessible dining options both within dining dorms and across campus. We will work to establish a mental health clinic on West Campus, and will work to ensure that students living off campus have more access to S3 resources and mental health resources. We will work with an administration to improve advising and ensure that all students are getting the mentorship they require to succeed at MIT and beyond. Finally, in order to ensure our collaborative efforts with the administration are not disregarded, we must empower student leaders to hold decision makers accountable by creating explicit guidelines for transparency and confidentiality. But we cannot pursue student-led change on these and other issues without student leaders who are committed to advocating for thorough student input at all levels of decision making. If elected as your president and vice president, we, Sarah Melvin and Alexa Martin, will empower students to effect change at MIT and fight for all voices to be heard. Thank you.
Hi everyone, we are Daysi Gomez and Liz Cox, and we believe that people make MIT. Undergraduates at MIT have diverse backgrounds in every sense and have a wide range of experience while at MIT. But what everyone should have in common is a student government that is truly representing them. We believe that the purpose of the UA is to provide students with the right resources and remove any obstacles that might prevent them from focusing on the passions that brought them to MIT in the first place. Liz and I have had a wide range of experiences in student government. I am the current vice president of the UA and served as the class of 2018 vice president for 2 years. Liz is the former Baker House president and served on DormCon and UA Council through that role. Through our collective experience in student government, what we have found is that there is a lack of communication between the UA, students, and administration. Therefore, our top priority is to restructure the UA communication system to create a unified student voice and increase awareness of the student life issues that the UA focuses on. In the next year, major decisions are being made by administration on issues such as dining that will directly affect students for years to come. And this is why it is more essential than ever for the UA to be strongly connected to students and to present a unified front to administration in order to ensure that decisions made truly reflect the student voice. We want to increase communication between the UA and undergraduates through more in-person interactions, like weekly visits to dorms, FSILGs, town halls, UA study breaks, and having administrators there so students can easily present their ideas to them. We also want to have an online system similar to Reddit or Piazza, where students can easily submit any ideas that they have, but also any issues that they want the UA to focus on.
By building off the positive relationships that Daysi and I have with administrators and fostering a strong, united student voice, we can effectively work on the issues we have already heard about from students. We want to push for flexible dining options through implementing a dining dollar system across campus and having more vendors on the east side of campus. We want to implement a matching system for academic advising that pairs undergraduates to faculty based on their preferences for a personal relationship. We want to increase diversity in student government by working more closely with cultural group leaders, especially when we recruit for members, committee chairs, and UA officers. All these initiatives are possible, and we want to work together with the MIT community to accomplish them.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before I begin, I would like to thank VTech for hosting tonight and all of you for coming out. I would like to begin our debate here tonight at first with an apology to all of you and to all students. Earlier last week, my friend and my running mate, Alida Fueta, had to step back. Life happens, and sometimes it hits you hard. We were not out there, and I'm apologizing for being absent over the last week. The In a student government, trust and respect are critical. And we chose to take the time to find a VP candidate, interviewing a dozen over the weekend, and take that time to make sure we were ready and prepared to meet you before coming here today. Touching more on trust and respect. Aron and I have been part of the UA for some time now. We have led committees, we've worked on long-term policy changes, we've brought about changes to the drug and alcohol hope-seeking policies. But we too need to apologize. Because when you go around and you talk to people and you ask them, tell me about the UA, or tell me one thing the UA has done for you, or tell me a committee chair who you would reach out to if you had problems with health and wellness, or with education, or another topic, most students who I have talked to come up empty. That is not good enough. We need change, and we need it now. The UA, comprised of 18 committees, over 150 student members, can do this and must do this. But for that, we need change. And that is why we are running. We are running because we want to build a better MIT, and we want to build it with all of you. And to us, that means we need to touch on 5 key priorities. The first one, no student should go hungry or face hardship. The second one, any decision that is made must respect student autonomy and dignity, and decision makers must be publicly accountable. Third, every student should have access to trusted and effective support and mentorship. Fourth, opportunities should be easily and universally accessible across campus and to everyone. And fifth, we believe in a better MIT where MIT serves to support us as we go about to change the world. Now this campaign is not about us. You can read about us on our website, but tonight we want to make this about the issues. And we want to talk about how together we can build this better MIT. And I look forward to the coming 2 hours. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you all. Now to the first question, and we're going to ask.
If you want to submit questions on social media, you can tweet at us. It's at the tech, yeah. And you can also comment on Facebook. Don't submit questions to the Google form though, because I don't know if we have access to it.
Sorry about that. Apologies about all the technical difficulties. The first question that we'll ask all the candidates, and we'll ask the vice presidential candidates to go first, is why are you running?
We're going to start with Daisy and Liz.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that honestly everyone here sitting up here today I think that everyone sitting up here today really does care about making MIT student life better. And that could be seen through all of us being involved in different roles in student government and being involved in the MIT community. I think for myself, as Baker House president, I found that my role was most fulfilling and I did the best job when I was really engaging with my residents. And I would go to all different parts of the dorm and try to talk to people who I didn't necessarily know personally and learn about what they really care about, and then making them aware of what conversations were being had in student government. And I think that that's exactly what I want to bring to the UA Vice President role, and that's obviously a lot harder to do on such a larger scale, but I think that I'm really excited about the opportunity to engage more with other people in the MIT community, learn about their specific issues, and then be more transparent on what the UA is doing about about those and help them also get involved with issues that they care about if they choose to do so.
So the reason that I got involved in student government in the first place was actually, it was through class council, and I just honestly wanted an excuse to meet the MIT community. I really got to know people from all different dorms on campus, and even though it was just the class of 2018, it was a really great way to learn about the different things that people are passionate about in this community. So when I ran with Sophia, I thought that the purpose of student government, like I said before, is really to help students be able to focus on just the things that they're very passionate about. And I think that the UA has the potential to do that, and I really want to be able to lead that movement of having a lot of communication with students and knowing what issues they are facing so that the UA can properly address them and work with administration to make sure that what students want is truly being represented in the decision process.
So I'm running because I'm passionate about MIT, I'm passionate about students. I want to help make MIT the place for which all of us live here. I want to make sure that every single person has their opinion heard, and that everyone has an easy way to get their opinion to the administration. I've been engaged in several student groups over the past year I've been here. I've also been in the UA Student Government Collaboration Committee. I've worked on making the administrators understand what students think, how students think, and making the students understand how can they access administrators, what do the administrators think. Unfortunately, the UA site was dissolved earlier this year due to lack of interest. But I still would like to continue this work, and I think being the vice president of the UA would be one of the best options to really make my skills available to the students, my skills to engage with administrators, to approach them, and this will really help the UA to meet its role of representing all the students.
And just to add to what Aron said, I think this is one of my favorite questions. Because to truly answer it, you need to ask yourselves, why am I running now for things that I could have been doing earlier? And if you don't have a good answer for that, then you have no point sitting up here and talking to you. So what I say to you is I am running because I believe in a better MIT, and I believe that the UA, our student government, is the most effective way to bring across change to all 4,500 of us.
Hello everybody, my name is Alexa Martin and I'm a sophomore in Course 18 involved in both the UA and class council. As a freshman, I originally got involved in class council because I wanted to make an impact on the community around me. I then decided to expand my role into the UA because I wanted to make a larger impact in terms of policy changes and long-term effects. For instance, I've been working to make the fair more representative and transparent in the planning of it so that more majors and different types of companies are available. Throughout my time, I've thoroughly enjoyed working with students across the Institute and being able to advocate on their behalf. I want to expand my role as Vice President because I believe the UA can be a stronger organization and better advocate for students and be there for students when they're facing issues. I want to be Vice President to help bring the UA to its full potential, communicate effectively with students, and make a difference at MIT.
I truly believe that MIT is unique in the people who choose to come here and the level of student autonomy that the institute affords us, whether it's in our academic passions or the things that we put in Multi 7 when we're not really supposed to, and where we live on campus, and who our friends are, and everything. And I think that there's this pressure sometimes at the higher level of the institute to sort of conform that we need student leaders who will resist this change and really fight for an MIT that's representative of the students who chose to come here because it's such a special place to be. And I've had such an amazing experience in my time in student government. I've served as the president of Senior House during a particularly difficult and challenging time. And I really learned how to effectively advocate for students and ensure that their voices were being heard in a process that originally started as something that didn't involve us at all. And I really believe that the UA could do more on this front and could do more to support all of the student leaders who govern so effectively in their different communities. And I think that Alexa and I, will represent a unique group on MIT and sort of will be able to build a cabinet in the UA that can hear all of the different voices across campus. Because that's what MIT is, and that's what MIT student government needs to be.
We're not going to be offering a rebuttal before that question. So we're going to move on to some more policy-oriented questions now. And we'll start with Malte and Aron this time. And the question is, what do you think is the source of tension between MIT administration and students?
Thank you for that, Emma. I think when we look at having an institute where we have 4,500 undergraduate students, and we have just over 4,500 administrators, we will obviously come up with problems. And the same way that we as students sometimes describe these 4,500 people as the administration, I think sometimes administrators have trouble seeing the nuance and the individuality of each one of us, and sometimes find it easier to describe each one of us as the students. So I think most of the tensions that have arisen come from this fundamental problem of our relationship with administrators and their relationship with us. So what we would like to do about that is, on the first point, is ensure that decisions are not sprung upon students, but can be actively discussed amongst all of us, by hosting a public directory where every single decision currently under review is openly available. Student leaders, as with administrators involved in that decision-making process, are publicly visible. You can contact them, you can reach out to them, and more than just being transparent, you can actually hold them accountable. And I think if we are able to solve that problem and build that relationship, we can avoid most of those longer-term issues that we keep seeing again and again, both with the Senior House fiasco, with questions
Try to wrap up your answer.
Around the new house movement, and I think it comes down to
I think that students and administrators generally agree that they want the administration to be seen as a body that's there to affect change that students really desire, and a body that should empower students to, institute what they want at MIT. And I think a lot of the problems that we see in the administration come from this legacy of miscommunication and lack of transparency. And I think we have to work on both fronts to address this problem. We have to think about ways that we can change the culture within the administration to ensure that they want to be transparent and they want to talk with student leaders about the issues that they're thinking about. And this comes through, ensuring that student leaders will follow confidentiality and that the UA can provide student leaders with resources to understand how to have confidential conversations with administrators. It also comes down to communication between admins and students. A lot of the times, administrators are working within constraints that we as students just don't care about because they don't tell them to us. And we have to ensure that students can better understand all of these constraints that are influencing the problem that they're talking about. This is a huge issue with the new for instance. You know, there are agreements that students and administrators came to, but then administrators were like, no, we can't do this. But a lot of that has to do with the things that are coming down from above. And we have to think about ways that we can work together to solve these problems and the constraints that are given to us. And I think our part as the UA comes down to providing really clear guidelines for students who are going into negotiations with administrators. And we really need to have something in writing so students can hold tutors accountable when they don't follow through with what's agreed.
I agree with a lot of what was just said. I think that at the end of the day, administrators and students have the same goals and they want what's best for students. And I think that where things get complicated is in the communication of having student voices heard by administration and to the degree that they want to be heard. So really having a lot more student representation on the committees that are making these big decisions and making sure that there's a diverse set of voices on that committee too is it's very important. But in general, what Sophia and I have been trying to do this term is really engage more with administrators and build a more positive foundation so that in future terms, presidents, vice presidents can feel comfortable going to them and trying to build trust with those administrators now. But in general, I think that the big solution to that problem is really making sure that there's clear communication between student representatives and administration and making sure that there are confidentiality guidelines, which is actually something that the UA has been working on this year, and really making sure that administrators are comfortable with the things that they're disclosing to student leaders.
All right, thank you. Our next question will be about mental health. Specifically, describe what you see as the largest mental health problems on campus for undergraduates, and what will you do to address those problems? We're going to go to Sarah, then Daisy, then Aron.
I think that MIT has done a lot in recent years to address problems of mental health at the institute, but there's still this huge problem of accessibility. I know I have friends who live in senior house and they struggle with depression and it's a huge barrier for them just to cross the street to MIT Medical. And I can't even imagine what it's like for someone who lives in Next House or Simmons to go that physical distance to reach those resources. So I think the most important solution that students need to focus on in the coming years is how can we bring these resources to students on this side of campus. So this is something that we've already been discussing with Susie Nelson. And you know, this is something that I mentioned a year ago and it seemed like a pie in the sky kind of thing. It was never going to happen. It was too expensive. It was too this, it was too that. But it's seeming more and more achievable and we really need to focus on this. There are already plans in the way to develop a community wellness center, either in the STUD or another space in this side of campus. And we've been brainstorming ways that we can add clinicians into this system. Because it's not just about having, you know, some random person who's trained to talk to you about mental health issues. It's about having someone that you know well and you feel comfortable talking with and develop a relationship with. And I think that the initiatives like Let's Chat have been good in terms of, you know, lowering barriers and improving access and starting conversations, but they're not enough for students who are actually suffering with serious mental health problems on campus, because it doesn't provide the sort of continual access that they really require.
So something that Sophia and I were working on this year, that was one of our main priorities with mental health, was providing an evaluation system for S-Cubed, and that survey is actually now being implemented. So anytime someone goes to S-Cubed, they can evaluate their experience. So that was something that we felt very strongly about, and that I think should be continued throughout the next term. So making sure that the current mental health resources are actually effective, and making sure that there's a way for students to let people know if those resources aren't being effective. So something that we really want to focus on is expanding that evaluation system to MIT Mental Health and to other resources on campus. And beyond that, accessibility is a really big issue. So an idea that Liz and I had was having more in-dorm office hours for different resources. So for example, S Cubed could come a specific block of time to different dorms, and for FSILGs having a smaller barrier. So having the ability to be able to make phone calls to S Cubed and have that serve the same purpose as an in-person visit. But in general, we want to make sure that the resources are effective and people have a way of bringing that, their experiences to the resource that they were visiting and making sure that they are actually effective.
I'm not going to touch this microphone. Had enough problems with it. I think when we look at mental health on campus, we need to look broader than just the problems and the facilities that we have of mental health here. I had an advisor who, a few years ago, when I was going through a particularly rough time, saw that and asked me if it was going to help him. And I was having troubles, it was about that SQ. And it got to the point where he actually went with me, walked with me to mental health, waited with me, and made sure that I was being served. And I think that is what we need to look at. We need to look broader than just having facilities around campus, something that's already being discussed. We need to look broader than just having facilities within dorms, something that's also already being discussed and also already being implemented. And we need to try to tackle this bigger question, which involves everything from the culture on campus, to the academics on campus, to the availability of tutoring, to the question of our advisors. 51% of students don't feel comfortable reaching out to their advisors on non-academic issues. This question is so much broader than just having physical spaces or having them in person. And I think when we want to talk about one particular issue with mental health, I'll say tackle it broadly.
All right, we do have a quick follow-up, and the follow-up that we want to do is how do you define success in these measures and how will you make sure you measure it? So we can do a lot of things and not make it effective. How will you know that what you did is in fact effective?
Same order.
I think that when we talk about effective mental health resources on campus, we can't just think about, use rates, we also have to think about quality. And I know that the UA has already been talking a lot about, doing evaluations for S Cubed and mental health and counseling. And I think this is really great, and it's something that will continue going forward. But I know that there are huge barriers to sharing this sort of information, and we have to work within the confines of the profession that these clinicians and social workers have. So I think that we have to have more conversations on campus amongst students about what's effective and if their needs are actually being met. Because we can't always rely on surveys, we have to have just more open dialogue. But in terms of success for our proposals, I think success looks like a mental health facility that's fully functioning on West Campus. And as I said already, that's my biggest priority, because when you have someone who has a serious mental health diagnosis that it affects their day-to-day, these in-dorm services and S Cubed aren't enough. They need to see someone who has mental health training and exists within a clinic to provide a full range of services.
Yeah, so I think success in terms of mental health and initiatives that address mental health would come from speaking to students, so having working groups and having the UA Student Support and Wellness Committee work specifically on making sure that students feel comfortable with the quality of care that they're receiving. So these evaluation systems at mental health resources are a really great first step, but being able to look at that data and not just implement that not just implement the survey, but also evaluate the evaluation system. So making sure that the Student Support and Wellness Committee is looking at the actual results of that survey and making sure that S cubed is held accountable if the quality of care isn't being provided at the right level that students want. But in general, making sure that student voices on these issues are being heard by the UA in general. So again, working groups, or even just visiting different dorms, us in person, and actually talking to them about these issues and hearing one-on-one if they truly believe that these resources are being effective.
So even by MIT, even by the administration standards, even by their questions, our mental health resources aren't currently effective. The most recent survey in 2015 suggested that in almost every single of 25 different indicators, we were lagging behind the national average. So I think that's the first point. And the second point being that more importantly, and more than just data, we need to look at particular stories and particular people. Because we need to remember when we talk about mental health resources, it isn't just a number that say 21% of students can't get an appointment quickly enough, but there are actually lives happening here and being affected by it. And you reach out, and I'm sure you as well as I have friends or even perhaps yourselves who have suffered from some of these problems, or have had poor experiences with mental health, or poor experiences with S cubed, or are scared, or even if you just have times where you ask yourself, do I belong here? Or even just doubt what you're doing here. So to me, this mental health question touches directly on these issues. And the only way that I think we get to that point is at a time when each one of us feels like they belong here, and throughout their time they feel like they belong here. And regardless of what, let's say, opening hours are, so if you don't personally feel like it is accessible, even if it's right next door to you, then we still have a problem. So to me, to us, to our team, the most effective indicator is asking the question, do you feel it is working?
Thank you. So this next question, we'll start with Daysi and Liz. And the question is, what do you suspect is the cause of academic stress at MIT?
So academic stress at MIT. I think that the challenging academic environment at MIT is something that a lot of students come to MIT for. So I don't think that the rigor of courses is a problem. I think it's how certain students might feel like they're not being supported well enough by the MIT administration or just faculty in general. So I think really having more systems where faculty can reach out more to students, but also be aware of any resources that they can point students to. So in general, just having more training of faculty so that they can point students to things like S cubed, but also stronger academic advising is something that a lot of students have said that would improve their MIT experience overall with academics. So having someone who very clearly cares about how well you're doing in your classes is something that would exponentially improve the academic experience of students overall. So something that Liz and I really want to implement is a matching system between advisors and advisees based on how much of a personal connection these students want to have with their advisor. So some students might feel like they need a higher level of support than others, and being able to actually give that to them will help their overall academic experience.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, I think that Daisy was right. I think a lot of times the stress comes from the fact that students don't really see their advisors as humans as well, and as well as their professors. And I think having more understanding between professors and students. So for example, I've talked to a lot of students that said they didn't realize that they could reach out to faculty about extensions until later in their tenure here. And so first of all, having advisors who express that that's allowed or encouraged to students would help a lot. And then I also think I've talked to a lot of students about the stress they had around CPW, and I think there are things like that when they had projects due right before CPW, when they're trying to also when they're also trying to put on events for their dorm and put their best foot forward for MIT. So basically making advisors aware of those kind of students' issues before they set their syllabi is also very important.
To touch on 3 issues really quickly. First, I think there are issues going beyond MIT that we struggle with. The recent study by Case University Student Groups suggests that 1 in 10 students faces food insecurity during their tenure on campus. And I've personally spoken with students who sometimes and routinely need to make the tough choices between, do I send money home to my family? Do I buy groceries for the week? Or do I get a filling and go see the doctor? And there are issues affecting us and compounding on the stress beyond just academics. Second point is I think when we talk about academics, we also need to look at, let's say, the accessibility of support resources. And that means questions like, is tutoring universally available for all classes? Is advising supportive and directing you towards resources? Can you get extensions easily for extenuating circumstances? If 20% of students can't reach SQ quickly enough, then no, we are not meeting that. And thirdly, and perhaps somewhat more personally, I think that which makes MIT great is also that which sometimes is our biggest downfall. And that is that in our mindset of solving all these problems, we sometimes believe that I or we alone can fix them if only I have my laptop, the internet, a library, and this is good, and can solve these problems. So I think we also need to look at that cultural aspect behind some of these questions.
Yeah. If the candidates would like to address any of the points that the other candidates have made. Yes?
So I think that the other candidates brought up some really great points about advising and food insecurity and financial stress at MIT, but I do really want to get back to the original question, which was about academic stress at MIT. And I think the concept of a Hell Week is something very MIT and points very strongly to the academic culture that we have here. And somehow, exams and projects always happen to pile up on the same week, even when you're taking classes that are in the same department. And there are some departments who have taken steps to alleviate this and talk about how courses that they know a lot of students are taking at the same time, how to make their syllabi line up so they don't have all of the projects due on the same week. And I think that this is something that we have to expand to all departments at MIT and have to work with the different department heads and students in all of these different majors to think about ways that we can accommodate conflicting schedules and conflicting exam dates and really sort of level out the highs and lows across the semester. I think the points brought up about accessible resources like S-Cubed and advising are really important, and we have to ensure that students know that S-Cubed is available. There are a lot of professors who have started putting this in their syllabus at the beginning of the semester to really make sure that students understand that this is a resource that they can reach out to when something comes up and they need an extension. So I think this is a simple fix that we can expand to all departments and all majors at MIT, and it'll really help students figure out the balance throughout the semester.
If I could just add to that, studies actually show that levels of academic stress at MIT are very similar to our peer institutions. And I think that this question is a bigger question than academic stress. And it's a question about ensuring that students feel like they're welcome in the community that they're a part of, and that they have accessibility to all resources that they need. I think moving forward, the UA needs to better advocate for students and make sure that no students are facing any barriers when they're looking to achieve what they originally came to MIT for.
Thank you. Sorry about earlier. We're going to have Vivian here keep time now so that we're a little less distracted. Yes?
There is some universal sign of learning,
Yeah, it's going to be the
Yeah.
that you just said. That was good.
Yeah, we're going to add some sort of alert in here. Anyway, if any of the candidates would like to address points that the other candidates have made, same order. And you don't have to address points if you want to.
So we believe that even though it's very important to have departmental policies to prevent all of the exams and assignments to pile up in the same week, and it's important to have a better advising system. A lot of times when I've talked to students who said that they are going high academic stress, when I actually asked them, what's your actual problem? They couldn't really point to a class or exams that were very hard. It was just a general feeling that they couldn't really reach out. They couldn't really make their voice heard, that they were under pressure. Like, our academic course load is not much higher than previous institutions. It's really just our support system that has been there. So if we could improve the resources that are available to students, we could make them more accessible. We could make them aware of all the resources that are available on campus. It would greatly reduce the level of academic stress, even though the solution itself is maybe within the academic schools itself.
Yeah, so I think that these are great things to bring up, and they are things that we should work for, but we have to think about what are concrete, actionable things that we can do to improve these services. Because we can talk all day about how SQ and mental health should be better, but without talking about clearly the path to reach those goals, we're not talking about anything. So in our platform, one of the main things that we do in regard to SQ is expand the program of offering SQ services in dorms. This is something that we implemented in Senior House, and it's been really great. And it was something that I, over the summer, said to administrators, this is great, we need to see this in all dorms. And as UA president and vice president, we'll work to achieve that goal. Another thing that we want to do is improve services for folks who live off campus, because it's really hard when you're struggling with academics and life to get to the office hours on campus for SQ. So we want to offer some kind of video call-in service for these students, similar to the resources that they would have if they were living in a dormitory on campus.
All right, thank you all. We're going to ask you to respond to a quote that was published in the text in one of the opinion pieces. The quote is, "In the immediate aftermath of the election, the UA leadership informed the student body that they had emailed 2 administrators asking for faculty to be more understanding with coursework. Although the UA leadership may have thought that their actions were justified, in reality, they were not solving problems. There's nothing productive about coddling those who supported the losing candidate, as it only teaches that one does not have to assimilate back into society into an expanded hiding safe spaces. Can you please respond to this quote? Malte first, then Sarah, then Daysi.
Thank you. I think part of what makes us MIT is our celebration and our acceptance and our reliance on people who are different from us. And I think when we can all recognize that and when we all work together, that's when we have our greatest moments. Now, on November 9th, I know that a lot of people struggled in their search for meaning and belonging. And no matter what the issue is, be it related to the election or be it related to personal reasons, as an undergraduate association, we must support them. Because if any student doesn't feel like they belong here, that is something that is not okay and something we got to do better. Now, when it comes to questions of political affiliation or on questions of religious freedom, I think it is equally so important that as an undergraduate association, we do not make points on such issues. We recognize that we accept all students, but we cannot and we must not make these policies merely based on decisions that we don't like.
I want to respond to the actual quote that was read, which was about professors being accommodating with deadlines and aftermath of the election. We just spent, a half an hour talking about SQ and other services that are there for students when they're struggling with personal strife and other things in their life that prevent them from having academic success. Who are we to tell students that they don't deserve that support after an election when there are students who are concerned that their undocumented family members aren't safe in this country anymore, that when there are students who are concerned that because of their gender identity and their race that they don't feel safe on campus or elsewhere after the election. And I'm not saying that the UA should take any broad political statements, but I think that it's important to recognize that professors are allowed to be accommodating for students who feel that they are under extra pressure because of these circumstances. And I think moving forward, yes, the UA has to be nonpartisan, and it can't play a political role explicitly on campus. But when it comes to things that directly affect students' well-being and their ability to be on this campus, it's important for student leaders to take a stand and to advocate for their ability to be here and be successful.
So I think it's the responsibility of the UA to really make all students, no matter what party you are affiliated with, to feel like they are part of the MIT community and that they are safe and that they are allowed to express any viewpoints that they may have. But again, yeah, if students are experiencing emotional trauma over a national election, then I think that it is something that the UA can make that the UA can support students in if they feel like they need to access these resources. But in general, Sophia and I and UA Council have had a lot of conversations since then about the UA and its role in national policies and what our response should be. And basically, what we have come to an agreement on is that the UA can't release formal statements in favor of a certain political party, but we can support students when they are negatively affected by national policies. So even though in order to release a statement we would need the approval from all representatives on UA Council, we are still allowed to present students with the resources that they may need if they are having a hard time.
Thank you. I want to ask a quick follow-up that is kind of related to this. What do you think? So I know Sarah said that the UA should be nonpartisan, but what role do you think the UA should have in fostering political discussions on campus, especially in these times, in this divisive political climate?
going back to that earlier point of we are MIT because we are different. I think reconciling those points sometimes can be quite difficult. But it's precisely in those times that it's most important. So I think to touch on tangible things that the UA can do, while we believe there are 5 key priorities that we've got to focus on, I think part of the role of the UA is supporting our student groups to support the community to have these discussions. And when we have an environment where there are Republicans on campus who don't feel comfortable writing opinion pieces in the tech and associating their name with it because of the association around it, we've got to do better. Equally, when we have groups who struggle with outcomes, those times. Okay, so support the student groups, the MIT Republicans, the MIT Democrats, and let's have these discussions.
Yeah, so this past semester, the UA Public Affairs Committee has been working on drafting a policy platform for the UA to follow in light of national and local politics that may affect MIT students. And I think that this has been a really great conversation to be having in the UA and UA Council. And we've had a lot of really interesting discussion around it. And something that I've come to realize, as I said earlier, is that there's a fine line, and it comes down to when students are directly affected by a policy, whether it be at the state, national, or local level. I think it's the job of MIT student leaders to step in and advocate for their ability to be here. And I think if you take that direct action in line, you can sort of avoid more of the partisan politics. Another thing that I want to say is that I don't think MIT student government is doing enough to talk about local politics in the Cambridge area. You see all of these initiatives like the Engine and other MIT projects in Kendall Square that are going to have huge impacts on our local community and are like dramatically contributing to gentrification in Cambridge. And there aren't enough student leaders talking about this. And I know that there are students who care about these issues at MIT, and I think it would be great if the UA Public Affairs Committee could also work on these issues.
Just to touch on that really quickly, the UA Public Affairs Committee has been working with Alberto on that specifically, so it actually is something that the UA has been working on this year and will continue to work on next term. But to answer the question, something that the UA Community Committee and I spoke about this semester to implement for next year is having a series of events similar to conversations you can't have on campus, the class, that would facilitate conversations about issues on a national level, but generally anything that students feel they should be talking about and might not necessarily feel safe doing so, but just creating an environment for people to come together and talk about issues with the understanding that this is a safe place to talk about them and to actually respect other people's opinions. But I think that that's a very tangible way that the UA could be more politically active without making people feel like their opinions aren't valid or are alienating them.
Now we have a few questions that we would like to ask a specific candidate. So we'll start with Sarah. Senior House prides itself on being a distinct community from the rest of campus. How can you transition to being a representative of all undergrads after representing this one specific group?
Yeah, I care about Senior House because I care about student autonomy and the ability for communities on campus to self-govern themselves. And that's been a huge conversation that we've had at MIT at Senior House this last semester. And I think it's critical to have these conversations within wider student government as well. I also think that I'm the kind of person that you can drop me like anywhere on campus and I'll be comfortable and can have a conversation with the students who live there. And I have a lot of friends who live all across campus. My experiences in DormCon and the UA have introduced me to so many people that I wouldn't have met if I was just hanging out at Senior House. And again, you know, Senior House has had so many interesting conversations this past semester about how we can support students who have mental health issues. How can we bring S-Cube services to students where they live and where they need them. And I'm really excited to take all that I've learned throughout this process and apply it to the UA. I've also had so many conversations with administrators over the past semester, and I've really grown in my understanding of how to talk with them and how to actively and effectively communicate student interests. And I think fundamentally a lot of the times, Senior House and MIT and the administration have a lot of the same goals. You know, we want students to be happy, healthy, and feel like they're contributing to the community. And these are things that I'm ready to apply to the UA and students in general.
And now we have a question for Daisy. So, sources inside the UA have expressed doubts about your leadership abilities during your tenure as vice president, for example, not attending scheduled meetings. And it's unclear like how many sort of outward-facing things that you've accomplished. What do you have to say in response to these critics?
Yeah, so this was actually brought up at a different speaking event, and the scheduled meetings that were referenced were UA officer meetings. And every time that I wasn't able to make an officer meeting, I told Sophia about it. So if that wasn't communicated to others, I'm sorry about that. But in terms of outward-facing projects, I actually took the initiative of doing the Safe Ride on-demand shuttle system. And so that was something that came about by collecting a lot of student input from people who both lived on campus and off campus and were directly affected by the inefficiencies of Safe Ride and shuttles in general on campus. So that took a lot of working with administrators directly and also interfacing a lot with students and gathering their input. So I think through that specific project, I learned a lot of the leadership skills that would be very beneficial to have as UA president. So really being able to connect students and administration and bringing them to have an actual outcome, which is actually the on-demand shuttle system, which will start in the fall and is actually just at night. A lot of students have had some concerns about that, but yeah, we're actively working with the Dean of Student Life to fix anything that students are uncomfortable with the new system.
Thank you. Malte, you just took a year off away from campus and just got back here a few weeks ago. What makes you think that you're still in touch with current issues?
I appreciate that question, particularly because it gives me the chance to talk about taking leave. Now, you have 70 students every year who, for a variety of personal reasons, or mental reasons, health reasons, or because they just want to work at a startup somewhere, take leave. I took a year off. Among other things, I was researching in Pakistan, but to specifically answer the question, I think I got back before school started. I was on campus a number of times during my time off, visiting friends and going through different communities. And I think precisely from some of those things you learn by taking a time off and coming back again gives you a unique perspective to see what's going on at MIT and to see it from a different light and to bring that into discussions. I think is something that has been quite rewarding over the last 4 months, and it's something that we would seek to continue to do to bring different perspectives to our students.
Thank you all. Now we're actually going to go to some audience questions. So we did get access to the Google form, so we're going to read a question from there now, and we're starting with Daisy and Liz this time. And the question is, if students can live perfectly fine not knowing what the UA is or does, why should they care now?
So I think that ties in a lot with our main platform point of communication. I think that the reason students tend to not care very much about what the UA does is because they haven't had the right level of communication, so they don't know what projects we actually do take on. And I think that if students knew the kind of issues that the UA has a stake in, they would actually care a lot more about it. So, for example, from talking to a lot of people in dining halls over the past few weeks, Liz and I constantly heard about critiques about the food options on campus, and students didn't know that this is something that the UA will work a lot on over the next year. So having stronger communication with students is critical for them to know what the UA works on and actually therefore care about what the UA does.
I think when we look at a lot of change that has happened on campus over the last few years, be it, let's say, the recommendations put forth by the Black Students Union, by the Rainbow Lounge, by the Latino cultural community in 2015, we see a lot of fundamental change that has happened outside of the UA. It has happened by caring, passionate students going to administrators and making these things happen themselves. I think it's also something we see a lot when we talk about Greek life activities and see the incredible leadership by IFC and Handel. So, you know, I think in many ways, many people have lived without the UA for a long time. There are some issues that maybe we don't know about, but that's certainly been the case. But I think what we need is to recognize the potential of this organization, the potential of 150 students working towards the same thing. And, you know, laundry lists aren't going to get us there, particularly if we have a list of everything that's already happening or discussions already being had by administrators. So I think what we put forward is a vision for a better MIT that we would like to work with the UA, with all undergraduates, to make the most of this institution, to restore the trust and the respect from all students for this institution, to earn that back, that together we can unite and work on the challenges that we all face.
I think Alexa and I are going to empower students on campus to view the UA as a vehicle to make change across MIT. And I think part of this is communication, and as we said, that we want to have more casual conversations with students about the issues that they face. Because people love to complain about things in dining halls and their floor lounges and on email lists, but that doesn't always translate into action in student government. But the other side of this is effective advocacy from student leaders. So often things that people want to see on campus don't happen because we don't have student leaders going to administrators and asking for them. And I think that we see a UA that has stronger leadership out front that can take all of these grand ideas that students have and want to see on campus and translate into action by working with administrators and ensuring transparency in decision making that administrators take part in, and ensuring student representation on committees and in all of these issues that we face.
I'd also just like to add that people should care, especially now because elections are happening, and this is an opportunity for every student to have their voice heard and their opinion heard in who they choose to elect to lead. And it's important that students are informed when they're choosing, because when the UA is run by students who are hardworking and very dedicated to what they're doing, there's a really great opportunity for advocacy and support.
Sorry. So we'll take one question from Facebook. Then we'll go to the live audience here, so if you want to line up in front of the microphone, if you want to ask questions. Or at least make it clear that you want to ask a question here. The next question comes from Alan Sadhu from Facebook. Many issues affecting students, especially ones relating to academics and departments, are not controlled by administrators, but by faculty committees, departmental committees, or the MIT, or the MIT Corporation. How will you stay tuned into goings on with the circles, and how will you help make sure student voices are heard there? And we're going to go first to Malte. Sarah, please.
Thank you, Spoon, for that question. Fantastic. So I think to touch on a few points, I think often a struggle from the UA is actually to be in these discussions in the first place, and not just to hear them from a third-party source. So the big point is actually building those relationships between the UA and different administrators and different faculty and different ad hoc committees and the corporation, that we don't just have these personal relationships, which are so effective, but have the institutional relationships and have a UA that is respected and trusted, both by students to be an advocate for them, but also by administrators to be a voice of all students here. And I think as a UA, we have quite simply failed at that. We have not met that need, and we have not served you. So just like we need to earn that trust and that respect back from the students, I think we equally need to rebuild some of those relationships and ensure that there's that institutional relationship between the UA and these committees as they come up.
Can I just ask to clarify, is the question that decisions are not just made by the UA but all of these parties, but they're not just made by the UA and administrators?
This is a question specifically about circles.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So I think when we're talking about academics, we have to be ready to meet with department heads across campus and all of the different parties making these decisions, because we can work with Dean Freeman and administrators who take part in these decisions, but ultimately it's up to us to form relationships with the department heads as we advocate for academic changes. When it comes to the corporation, it's hard to have a voice in the corporation because it's like one large black box body. I know over the summer when we were talking about issues related to senior house, I had phone calls with members of the corporation, but they didn't have a lot of individual sway because it's a body that comprises so many different interests. So I think it's hard for the UA to build the same kind of personal relationships as they do with administrators. So I think instead we have to really gain the trust of the administrators who work under the corporation and with Wright, who works under and with the corporation, to ensure that when administrators are talking to us about the decisions that they're thinking about, that they're actually communicating the constraints that the corporation and other bodies have given them. Because often when we talk about things that administrators do that we don't like, we don't understand where it's initially coming from. And I think we have to ensure that they're actually communicating that to us.
Yeah, I agree with what Sarah just said about actually communicating the constraints that these different parties face, so that student leaders actually understand why certain decisions can't be made in their favor. But in terms of the corporation, the UA president serves on the board as an X Factor member, so being able to form more personal relationships through that avenue is a possibility. And actually another resource that the UA could use that's not administration is actually alumni. So the alumni board is also has a seat for the UA president. So being able to, again, form relationships with the people on that board is really important, so that when there are decisions that are being made without a lot of student representation, having more parties invested in the UA and what the UA is saying is really important. And in terms of faculty, yeah, I think I agree with the department heads. So being able to actually, again, form relationships with the department heads, just one-on-one, but also when we want to implement things like academic advising, it's really important to understand the differences between the different departments and why certain things won't work in certain departments. So yeah, it's really important to be able to personally reach out to those people.
All right, I wanted to ask a quick follow-up to this. So the UA does already have some structures in place to communicate with communities and faculty, notably faculty meetings, and also the UA has the job of nominating undergraduates to most of these committees. How do you see that working into the strategies that you all laid down?
So the question of the committees that the UA nominates to, that isn't always these are institute committees, about 24 of them, and they aren't always the same as the faculty working groups, and I think students' question is separate from that second point. These institutional committees are usually appointed by the chief of staff over the summer, just before the summer, and then nothing's heard of again. You look back, and we have to look back 4 years to find the first time where it was published in tech, the names of these students on these committees in 2013. So I think one key thing that we would like to do is ensure that all student leaders, not just the president and the vice president, not just us sitting right here, right now, with you, can be held publicly accountable. So we would make that nomination process inclusive, and we would have these students. These are students who sit on committees from discipline to academics. Have them publicly meet students and get their involvement and incorporate.
I think when it comes to committees, we need to have a more thorough and representative application process. I've sat in UA council meetings where we just have a slate of names that we're expected to vote on these people when we know nothing about them. And the UA councilors who vote on these folks, they don't really know anything about their previous experience or their ability to advocate student concerns. So I think we need to do a better job in terms of who we place on these committees. I've been to Committee on Student Life meetings talking about really complicated issues that students face and that affect different communities. And the UA leadership, frankly, has not done enough to speak up for the students who are present and advocating for their communities. So,
So one of our main priorities for the next term is diversity and inclusion, actually. So that ties in really well to outreach when we're trying to get committee members, not just institute committee members, but in the UA overall. So something that we really want to implement is reaching out to cultural groups specifically and encouraging them to encourage their committee or their members to apply, but also reaching out to different dorm presidents and people from the IFC and Panhandle, and just really trying to, and the LGC, and just really trying to create a very diverse UA and also diverse set of representatives on institute committees. Because these committees, as Sarah was saying, they actually do make very large decisions, so it's important to have that be as representative as possible. And in addition to that, something that the UA has been working on are confidentiality agreements, because a lot of these committees are confidential and can't disclose what is going on within those committees. So having guidelines for the representatives to be able to potentially share some of that information with the UA leadership so that they are more aware of what's actually going on around campus.
Now we'll accept a question from an audience member. If anyone would like to ask a question.
You speak loudly, you will repeat the question.
Oh, I can go? Okay. Hi. So as a current committee member and someone, cabinet member, and someone who'd like to continue on the UA, how do you plan to increase transparency between exec and cabinet members so that way cabinet members actually know what exec is doing?
Did you guys heard the question? Right. Okay. And for the video, it was how can for current people in UA cabinet, how can transparency be increased between exec and cabinet?
Yeah, so the vice president's role is the chief operating officer, and their main priority is to work on the internal workings of the UA and make sure that everything in the UA is going well. And so moving forward, I believe the vice president role needs to be greatly improved, and cabinet and operations meetings need to be greatly improved and increase transparency in what the members of the UA know. And so as vice president, I plan on increasing communication in the UA and making sure that all members are aware of what the exec is doing as well as what other committees are doing.
Yeah, so having been the person in charge of the cabinet meetings this term. I think what could really greatly increase transparency is having other exec members present during cabinet meetings, and that is an extra time commitment, but given that it's very important for the general UA committee members to know what exec is working on, I think that it's really necessary to do that. Yeah, I think in terms of the structure of cabinet meetings, I think having the structure right now with different committees giving their updates is great because it lets everyone know what else is going on in the UA in different committees. So I think the only thing that's really missing is having more exec members present.
Just to touch quickly, I think there's a significant problem taking responsibility from anybody below president and vice president, and that includes the other three members of exec and on cabinet. And touching on committee updates, we saw committee updates from the current UA administration in September, in October, in November. Nothing for 5 months, and 4 or 5 days ago we got another update. I will leave that with you. But also, Aron.
Yeah, so I have most served on the UA exec or cabinet. I've only been a committee member, and I found it very hard to reach the people up high to see what they are doing. I think it would be very important to inform everyone working in the UA, not only analysts in general, but in the UA, to what the people above them are doing, and allowing them to attend public meetings, for example.
Thank you. You had a question?
So most of you have mentioned some form of getting the administration to do something, but haven't really mentioned like how you go about doing that. Can you elaborate more on the actual steps you would take to kind of make administrators do something that like get to the meeting and do?
So the question was how, a lot of you have talked about how to get admins to do things. A lot of you have talked that you're going to get admins to do things. The question is how are you actually going to do this, especially as you hit resistance?
Yeah, so our main point again is communication. So getting students invested in what the UA is doing it's a hard task, but I think that if it is actually accomplished the way that we want it to be accomplished, then people will be more invested and will actually reach out to administration more personally. So being able to have a strong connection between the UA exec and students is very important when you want to get something done, because if you can mobilize those students to send emails, send letters, faxes, whatever it may be, and actually get the word out in numbers, I think that that's a very powerful message to administration. And also having set guidelines and protocols when they go, when we go into meetings. But yeah, mostly just communication with students and making them aware that their voice needs to be heard.
So just quickly to touch on 3 examples. Under my tenure as chair of the Innovation Committee, we introduced the Innovation Entrepreneurship Minor. We brought about a MISTI program that will be starting this summer, and we helped launch the Sandbox Innovation Fund. 3 programs that could not have been possible as a single student group and were only possible in collaboration with administrators. But also, Aron is currently a member of Student Admin Collaboration.
So yeah, as these examples also show, and in my experience as a member of the SAC, it is very evident that admins actually do want to do things by incorporating the opinion of students. They do want to make MIT better for students themselves. The main issue is that they don't know what the students want. The main issue is communication. The main issue is the students don't know a way through the UA to let them just know what they want.
So as a student leader who has had a lot of administrator collaboration, I can say that I have never seen any resources come out of that committee of the UA. And I think the first thing that Alexa and I are going to do as UA president and vice president is to create really explicit guidelines for student leaders going into tough conversations with admins. We want to have things in writing so student leaders feel empowered to hold administrators accountable when they go back on the agreements that they originally make. Another thing that is important is to have student leaders who won't back down from tough conversations. All of those things that you guys just mentioned are lovely things that administrators aren't going to say no to unless it's a conversation about funding. You know, there are student groups who have a lot more difficult conversations with admins, and we also need student leaders who are capable of having those difficult conversations.
Thank you. We're going to go to one question from the Google Doc, and then we'll ask a closing question because we're basically at time. This is a question from the Google Doc, and we do not have a name associated with it. How well do you feel like you understand minority issues in undergraduate life? Many of your platforms propose similar solutions that have already been implemented. However, although they have been implemented, representation in leadership is still low and graduation rates are still low. Do you understand there are underlying issues that need to be tackled? And if so, how are they? I'm sorry, Brandon. Do you understand the underlying issues? And if not, how do you plan to find out and discover those underlying issues? And we're going to go for Malte first.
Just before this, to touch on the allegation, we were involved in the drug and alcohol policy changes, the Michael handbook changes, and these were changes that were not easy to achieve and certainly are not just flashy or cash. Minority issues. I think what we see with a lot of minority groups on campus is they have incredibly strong community groups, BWAD, BSU, LCC, Rainbow Lounge, and a number of others. And I think they've built these groups because there's been a lack of leadership on the part of the UA. So I think the best and the most effective way forward is working directly with these groups and helping support them and helping empower them to make the changes that they see. We talked about issues earlier that students bring to campus. We've talked about accessibility, and these are all things that we want to work on.
So I don't think it's reasonable for me to say that I know everything that underrepresented minority groups on campus need from MIT. But what I can say is that Alex and I will work to build a very representative group within the cabinet and the UA exec. And as I said in our opening statement, we plan to work with the different cultural groups on campus to ensure that student leaders who have developed important skills in these groups can be brought in to use those skills to affect change on broader policy changes that the Institute faces. The other thing that I want to mention that's in our platform is Alexa and I want to create a simple system online for students to report faculty and staff who create hostile environments or discriminate against them in the classroom.
So going into the main point that we have been making throughout the night with communication. So Liz and I met with different cultural groups and their execs, and the overarching theme that we found was that they don't feel represented in student government within the UA, and we really want to increase that through outreach when we do the recruitment process at the beginning of each semester. So reaching out directly to different cultural groups, letting them know that this is a great opportunity to get involved in student government. But also something that I personally encountered through my experience at MIT is interface and just programs like that help you come to just working with the Office of Minority Education more on academic support is something that I think is really important, just because it has helped me as a minority in my personal experience at MIT.
So this will be the last question, and the question is, you all have talked about many issues that you'd like to see addressed, and you'll only be in office for a year, and you'll be a full-time student at the same time. And so how will you make sure to carry out the items in your platforms?
So Alexa and I have 4 main things that we want to prioritize in terms of action goals that affect students in their day-to-day lives. And those are are accessible and affordable dining on campus, both in dorms and in other areas like the stud. A mental health facility and resources on this side of campus. Advising that allows for training and ensures that freshman advisors receive unconscious bias training. And a career fair that is transparent in its planning and representative of a diverse group of interests and majors at MIT. So let me start with dining. People really want more flexibility in their meal plans, but we also don't want to raise costs for students because flexibility often brings on extra costs. Instead, we want to provide more options for students if they want to purchase a more flexible meal plan. We also are going to work with administrators as they plan to bring a grocery store to the Kendall Square area to really ensure that that's affordable and not some of the proposals that have come forward. We also want to have a similar outlet grocery store in the stud to really make sure that people have access to affordable groceries. And I'm going to turn it over to Alexa to talk about career fair.
Yeah, in terms of career fair, we really want to increase transparency in the planning of it and increase the majors represented and also the types of companies represented. Oftentimes it's really big tech companies, and that's not representing what all students want to do at MIT, and it shapes what students think that they can do once they graduate. And we want to see smaller companies and nonprofit companies there, and we really want to increase the UA's involvement in the planning of this event.
And if I can touch a little bit more on advising, a lot of times freshman advisors have no idea what's going on in other departments, which is reasonable because they're in their department, but they don't even have the resources to give students who are interested in a specific major. So we want to make really clear training so freshman advisors know where to point people when they have questions.
So we have also identified what our main priorities would be for the next term, and the first of which was restructuring the UA's communication system. So doing that both through in-person interactions, different visits to different dorms, FSILGs, and the online platform. And then our second point was diversity and inclusion, so working with cultural groups to increase the number of students in student government, but also making sure that we can support them in whatever way they want us to. Third is academic advising. So we want freshman advising specifically to be more supportive for MIT freshmen who might not know exactly how to navigate the community and in general how to deal with the stresses of MIT. And then for upperclassmen, making sure that we have a matching system that lets them be paired with advisors based off of the same preference for how much of a personal connection they want. And also dining is something that we've heard a lot constantly, almost every time we talk to a student. So having something like a dining dollar system that would allow students to use meal swipes across campus, and also implementing more vendors on the east side of campus is something that we've heard a lot.
I also think it's important to remember that the UA really is a team effort. Me and Daysi are just two people, right? But we want to make sure we can effectively work with the rest of UA exec and the committee chairs, along with all the great student leaders we have across campus to effectively give students the changes they want.
So we have 1 year, and I hear that most of what we've heard here tonight are issues that are already in progress, issues that are already being discussed. Advising is something big on Barnhart's agenda, Chancellor Barnhart, especially the freshman program. Career fair is something that was started in the Innovation Committee by Tiffany and Sharon over a year ago. And what we need, what this question really is about, are we going to do in addition to what's already happening? I think we've outlined our 5 key priorities around food insecurity, around proper decision-making accountability, around community and belonging, around accessibility of opportunity, and around this better MIT. And ultimately, it's not the people up here that count, it's about elevating and making accountable all members of the UA, the 18 committee chairs, the 5 members of exec, 150 members overall, that we can delegate this responsibility of sharing the hopes and the dreams and the and the aspirations of 4,500 students. In the end, no person, no two people can do that. And the way we solve this, the way we solve any problem, is by working together in a team. And that is how he promised to you here tonight.
Great. We're now going to go to very brief closing statements as we're already over time. We're going to go in the reverse order that we started. So Malte first, Daysi second. Keep it at in the order.
So I very much welcome the opportunity to chat with you tonight over the last 2 hours. I ask you to consider what is the vision of candidates beyond what is already happening. I ask you to consider what does a better MIT look like and how can we together work on making it happen. But most of all, here tonight, I ask of you to vote. The last 10 years, we've seen 3 elections with a single candidate running. We've seen an average voter turnout of about 40%. The way we are going to solve these challenges is by working together. And the first step to making that happen is by exercising your right and voting on what you care about. So thank you very much for the privilege to speak to you tonight. I look forward to reaching out to you afterwards. And thank you very much to Emma and Olivia for hosting this.
So from hearing all of our different platform points, I think it's fairly obvious to say that we have talked to a lot of undergraduate students, and all 3 tickets have clearly gotten a really good understanding of what exactly it is that students want to see from the UA. Our platforms are pretty similar, but I think that what's really setting Liz and I apart is the way that we want to go about implementing that. I think communication being our #1 priority really says a lot about the kind of representative government that Liz and I really want to implement. We really care about making people's MIT's experience as good as possible, and the way that the UA can have a role in that is by really truly understanding what students want to see from the UA and being able to have that collective, strong student voice presented to administration, and really working collaboratively and having a very strong connection between students, the UA, and administration is how we want to go about doing that. And thank you all for coming here tonight. Thank you to the tech for hosting this. And yeah, overall, it was a great time to be here, and we really appreciate your time.
Alexa and I have developed a long list of achievables that we want to work on this next semester and beyond. And we have clear plans of action to implement all of these goals and to work with student leaders across campus to ensure that what students say translates into actual policy changes. Alexa and I have a broad range of experience. I've been the president of a dorm during a particularly tumultuous time and fought for students' voices to be heard in a process that did not originally include us. Alexa has served in the UA and has a broad understanding of the internal workings of the organization. And together we're ready to take our knowledge of the UA and the organization and our experience advocating for students and implement all of these things that we have laid out in our platform. And I think that we are the best suited to bring about effective change at MIT and ensure that student voices are not just heard, but actually translate into policies and actions by the MIT administration. And yeah, I want to thank all of you guys for coming out on a Saturday night. I know that there are a lot of other things that you could have spent this time doing. And I really want to thank the tech for hosting this and having a really engaging conversation with all of the candidates. I really do hope that you guys vote and that you guys are informed voters. And you take a minute to look at our platforms and our experiences and make the wisest decision for MIT for your years here and for beyond.
Great. Thank you to all the candidates for coming. Thank you for the audience here and remote for asking your questions. And we hope you all will continue this discussion up to the election and during the election next week. For all of those who here in person, there's pizza behind me for free. There was pizza behind me by the way. I'm sorry.
But I think our